Here we are again. Okay. Well, good morning from Hawaii. Hope everybody is having an all right day. Yeah, Larry, of course. My pleasure. It's nice to have something to look forward to and reason to get out of bed early in the morning and get things started. Hello, Sarah. Hi, Tamara. Thanks for the email. Definitely good stuff to think about. I'll try and incorporate some of those things that you requested in today's lesson, or maybe tomorrow. Got Chris in Chicago. Pineapple mango is, I don't think there's really double stops in that one. How does it go? I mean, you could play it in thirds. You could do that kind of a thing, but I don't think it's written that way. Got rain in Illinois. Okay. Third measure. Is there a tab for that on my site? I haven't played that song in forever. Let's see, where would that be? Pineapple mango. Is this in Daniel Ho's teaching book? Because the one that I have is just a very simple version that I made up that doesn't have any kind of double stops. Any recommendations for ukulele songbooks? If you like Hawaiian music, He Mele Aloha is like the reference book to have. The lyrics are very accurate and the chords are pretty much spot on. I haven't found any wrong chords over the years. As far as anything else goes, I think it's, if you're getting something from Hal Leonard or Alfred, it should be pretty accurate, I would hope. I haven't noticed anything, specifically for ukulele that I've thought of as like, whoa, that's so exciting. They're not really songs, but Daniel Ward's arpeggio meditations for ukulele are super like practice etudes. I don't know if that's how you say it, but for finger picking, if you want to learn to finger pick with the Pima style a little bit better, arpeggio meditations is really nice for that. Okay, so see if we can get going here. Let's jump in right to island style. We can talk about some, try and get a whole arrangement together, play it end to end, and then talk about that ending that will be so nice for wrapping it up and not just trailing off or stopping like we hit a brick wall, and giving it a little bit of pizzazz as we go out of the song. So let's start from the very beginning. Remember, at the top, we're going to start on C and play C for 2 bars, and then go into F when we start singing the chorus. And then when we get to the verses and we play those, when we come out of the verse, we're going straight into the F. We're skipping that C to C7 bit. Dominator is in the Reno area. Okay. I tried to email him the other day, but I never got anything back, or the email bounced. So I was wondering what he got up to. It's too bad that his website had to move, but I guess it's nice the tabs are still around. So, island style. Let's try it together, starting on C. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry. Let's. I'm putting it in swing time. We've been doing straight time. Da 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 da. 1, 2, 3. On C. C7 if you like. F on the island. We do it island style. From the mountain to the ocean, G7, windward to the leeward side, back to C. On the island, that's the F, we do it island style, back to C. From the mountain to the ocean, G7, windward to the leeward side. Okay, stay on C, we're gonna go to the verse. Mama's in the kitchen, F, cooking dinner real nice. Beef stew on the stove, G7, lonely salmon with the ice. Eat and drink, F, and we sing all day, back to C. Kani Kapila, G7 in the old Hawaiian way on the island. We're on F now, we do it island style. From the mountain to the ocean, windward to the leeward side. C7 if you like. On the island, we do it island style. From the mountain to the ocean, from the windward to the leeward side. Next verse. We go grandma's house, F on the weekend, clean yard, 'cause if we no go G7, grandma gotta work hard. You know my grandma, she likes the F boy real sour. I love my grandma, G7 every minute, every hour on the island. We do it island style. From the mountain to the ocean, from the windward to the leeward side. On the island, we do it island style. From the mountain to the ocean, from the windward to the leeward side. Tag that last line, from the mountain to the ocean. From the mountain to the ocean, from the windward to the leeward side. One more time. From the mountain to the ocean, from the windward to the leeward side. And stop. Okay, let us talk about an ending that we can put there. So it'll sound like this. From the mountain to the ocean, from the windward to the leeward side. Kind of slingshots the song out the door and wraps it up nicely. So to do that, what's going to happen is we from the mountain to the ocean, G7 to the leeward side, and then we're on C for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we strum 1 time on C, 1 time on G7, 1 time back to C. So it's C, G7, C. If you can stop the chords in between, C, G7, C, it's a little more dramatic, and then you let the last one ring. So altogether, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, C, G7, C. Okay, let's try that all together. I'll count you in and see if you can get the stops and the chords in the right places and stop at the same time with me. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, C, G7, C. 1, 2, try it again. C, 2, 3, 4, C, G7, C. C, ready. 1, 2, ready, go. C, 2, 3, 4, C, G7, C. Counting to 4 is hard before you wake up all the way in the morning. So we can use that there to get out of the song nicely. Let's try tagging from that last line so you can get a feel for the ending with a little bit more of the song leading up to it. Usually the trick with the ending is kind of the fastest, hardest part of the song, but you've got to play all the way through the song to get there. So it's sort of like that moment of truth when you either succeed or you kind of crash and burn at the very end of the song because you forgot how the ending goes. So that's why it's nice to practice it with a little bit of the song to lead in. So when you do get to the point where you're playing the whole song leading to that, it's not quite as difficult. So from the mountain to the ocean, let's try that together. 1, 2, ready. From the mountain to the ocean, from the windward to the leeward side. 2, 3, 4, C, G7, C. Same thing again. 1, 2, ready. From the mountain to the ocean, from the windward to the leeward side. 2, 3, 4, C, G7, C. Now let's try the whole last verse plus the tags. Okay, so we'll start on the island on F. 1, 2, 3, on the island. We do it island style. From the mountain to the ocean, from the windward to the leeward side. From the mountain to the ocean, tag that last line. From the mountain to the ocean, from the windward to the leeward side. One more time on the tag. From the mountain to the ocean, from the windward to the leeward side. Going out, 2, 3, 4, C, G7, C. So that's how it's going to sound. You can use that on most songs in the key of C, and that chord change, if you transpose it into a different key, that's universally useful for pretty much any key you play a song in. If it's just sort of a slowish, chugging kind of song, bum, 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 ta-da, you're done. So that's very useful to know instead of just kind of trailing off at the end of the song and not quite sure how to stop. So that is the prescribed ending we can use for that song. Let's talk about swing versus straight time, okay? What we've been doing so far in these lessons is playing in a straight time, where everything's even. If we play a down strum and an up strum, it's the same amount of time between both of them. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Tick, 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 right? So if you were to play those in a piano and have it written on sheet music, it would be even eighth notes the whole way through. Okay. If you want to play it in a swing time, which ukulele players, when you put them in a group, are notorious for playing in swing time, you would make the down strum longer and the up strum shorter, so that it becomes more of a loping feel, and you kind of gallop along with your strum. So when that happens, it sounds like this. The down strum is longer than the up strum, and so you go long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short. This is actually easier to play for most people because gravity is working with you to play the swing strum. Your hand goes down with gravity, and then you have to work to bring it up, so you bring it up as fast as possible, and then you let it drop again. So the lazy bit is when you drop your hand and you kind of let that be the easy part, and you rest on the down, and then you pull your hand up, and then you drop it again. So that's swing. Straight is when it's even. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. This is swing. One and 2 and 3 and 4 and long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short. The one or the counts, the downbeats, always stay in the same place regardless of straight or swing time. All that changes are the upbeat eighth notes. Either they're even and you're playing straight time, or you're swinging them so that they're happening faster at the end of the down strum. That's really exaggerated, but that's the idea. That would be the swing strum. So let's try it together. See if we can switch between the two different feels. Your down strum is going to stay the same. So if we were playing along with a metronome click, the count would remain steady. But in between that, and, that is what we're going to either play straight, or we're going to push it back so that it's a lazy feel and for the swing time. Let's start with straight. That's what we've been doing. And then I'll call it out and see if you can change and match up with my rhythm here, okay? So 1, 2, ready, straight time. Just hold C or mute the strings. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and both sides are even. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Now let's try going to swing. Long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Go back to straight. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And then swing. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. The trap is when you fall into playing everything in a swing feel. That's what happens a lot of times when you put ukulele players in a group. And one person they call it the chalang-a-lang. So if you've heard of the notorious chalang-a-lang, that's what it is. And when you get people in a group, they tend to play that, because if you hear the one person next to you playing in that feel, you just kind of follow along. And so all of a sudden, every single song you play is in that same feel, and it can be a little tiresome. It's not bad, but it can be a little bit tiresome. Okay, so the thing to think about is that a song usually fits into a straight feel or a swing feel. It can't be both at the same time unless you intentionally change halfway through. And so what we were playing with Island Style is a straight feel, and I believe the recording has that straight feel to it. But you could also change it if everybody in the band or just you by yourself agreed to play it in a swing feel. You could play the same song with a swing feel. So let's try that now. And instead of playing Island Style with the straight, which we've been doing, let's try and swing the whole thing. I think you'll find that once you hear it, you'll be able to jump right in and adjust subconsciously to that rhythm and timing instead of having to really think about it. But it's good to be able to do both. So let's try the swing feel for Island Style now. Let's try it from the beginning, and we'll play all the way through. And when we get to the end, try and use the C, G7, C ending. Okay, now with a swing feel. 1 and 2, and here we go on C, C7 to F. On the island, we do it island style. From the mountain to the ocean, G7 windward to the leeward side. Going to F on the island, we do it island style. From the mountain to the ocean, windward to the leeward side. Okay, let's play a verse now. Mama's in the kitchen, F, cooking dinner real nice. Beef stew on the stove, G7 loamy salmon with the ice. We eat and drink F, and we sing all day. Kani Kapila, G7 in the old Hawaiian way. On the island, we do it island style. From the mountain to the ocean, G7 windward to the leeward side. One more time through the chorus to F. On the island, we do it island style. From the mountain to the ocean, G7 windward to the leeward side. Next verse. We go grandma's house, F, on the weekend, clean car cars. If we no go, grandma's gotta work hard. You know my grandma, she likes the boy real sour. I love my grandma, G7 every minute, every hour. On the island, we do it island style. From the mountain to the ocean, from the windward to the leeward side. To F on the island, we do it island style. From the mountain to the ocean, the windward to the leeward side. Tagging the last line. From the mountain to the ocean, G7 windward to the leeward side. One more time. From the mountain to the ocean, from the windward to the leeward side. 2, 3, 4. C, G7, C. So that is island style with a swing feel. It's really important to be able to do both, and hopefully I've given you that. But yeah, the trick is to not get caught in playing every single thing in swing time, which tends to happen. Because there are a lot of songs that aren't in a swing feel, and if you want to play the song and have kind of the more original feel to it and not necessarily make it a happy ukulele kind of song, then you want to be able to play it with a straight feel. So doing both ways is important. Got a question on the tempo. Probably about 100 BPMs. 100 beats per minute is what you would set your metronome for if you wanted to play the song in that time, that rhythm tempo-ish. That would be what I would probably start at. If you want to go slower, you can go slower. Practicing slower is actually harder. You might not think it, but when you're playing with a metronome, there's more room to be wrong when the metronome is going slower. Quick question. Is there a good place where I can go on my computer to tune my ukulele? There is. What is it called? It wasn't working on my Mac. I couldn't get it to work, but I know that they do have one somewhere. Is it Ukulele Bunny? No, it's not this email. Something else. I was just in touch with the guy who has made a tuner. Aha. I believe the current one is uke-tuner.com. And I'll post a link in the comments if I can do that as the admin. Looks like it. So if you use that, you have to figure out how to allow your microphone to pick up your ukulele. And like I said, it wasn't working for me when I tried it, at least not the new version that he sent me to get some critiques on. But that's a great resource for tuning your ukulele online. But if you have a smartphone, it's nice to get an app as well that does the same thing, but you can carry around in your pocket. All right, so moving on. I was kind of imagining when I came up with the idea to do this week-long ukulele beginner camp would be to teach you guys how to play One Day by Matisyahu. It's one of my favorite, just kind of uplifting, nice, pop-ish sort of songs. But it requires a new chord that we haven't learned yet. But once you learn this chord, there are tons and tons of songs you can play with the chords that we've learned so far in the course. So this chord is G major. And to play it, what you're going to do is you take your peace sign fingers and you put them on the 2nd fret, on the 1st string on the bottom, and the 3rd string from the bottom. So your peace sign, 2nd fret, with a string that is uncovered in the middle. That's the beginning of the G. And if this next step is too difficult for you, you can get away with playing this chord here, which is called a G6. It's actually kind of a jazzy chord, but it's kind of a halfway house for playing the full G. But all you do to finish the full G chord is put your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string in between. So it's kind of like a G7 in the sense that it's a triangle, but it's pointing the other way. And you reverse your fingers. You want to make sure that your 1st finger is closest to the ceiling. Nerd's eye view. Hi, Pam. All right. So G, this is the normal G that you should practice playing. If you can't quite get there inside the context of a song, you can leave your 3rd finger off for now. But it's best if you can practice adding the finger on there. Okay, so we're gonna need this with One Day because the progression that we're gonna play, this is a very standard pop progression, but it's gonna be C to G to A minor to F. Hang on, I need to let the cat out. Okay, bye. C, G, A minor, and F. Let's practice it by strumming just down strums, 4 down strums. So 1 bar per chord, starting with C, then going to G, then A minor, and then F. Ready? 1, 2, let's try it on C. And then G, and then A minor, which we learned in the Bruno Mars song, and then F. Look ahead if you can. C, and then G, and then A minor, and then F. C, then G, then A minor, and then F, C, G, A minor, and F. All right, so the trick with this progression is getting from C to the G. So what you can do as you're playing through this and if you're getting overwhelmed going to the G, is plan ahead with your peace sign fingers behind the C, so that as you're playing the C, you can get these two fingers ready so that when it's time to jump to the G, you can just drop them onto the strings and then hop your third finger up, because the third finger is on the same fret, it's just switching strings. So if you get the peace sign fingers ready, then you just make the hop. So drop and hop. That's the best way to get to the G. But really, the best way to prepare yourself for these chords is to think ahead. So if we're playing the C, by the second beat, hopefully you've established your fingers on C, so you can think about the next chord. So you can think about going to G, in which case you can be hovering your fingers, getting them ready, and just mentally preparing so that when it's time to switch, your brain is ready. Maybe your fingers aren't ready, but your brain knows exactly what it's supposed to do. So let's try that one more time. 4 strums per chord: C, G, A minor, F. And the nice thing about this song is that is the progression. It's like Hunger Strike or Just the Way You Are, as opposed to Island Style, which has varying chord changes that kind of switch depending on what part of the song you're in. This is one of those progression-based songs that just goes around and around in circles. So it's great practice for some of these harder chords. Starting on C, let's try the progression again. 1, 2, ready, go. Moving to G, G, up to A minor, and then F, C, and then G, A minor, F. Let's try it a couple more times. C, and then G, and then A minor, and then F. Last time. C, G, A minor, and then F. Right? What's going to change to be able to play the song and sing along with it is that we're going to play 2 strums per chord. We're going to take the 4 that we had and cut them in half. So now it's C, and then G, and then A minor, F. C, G, A minor, F. Jump in when you feel like it. C, G, A minor, F. C, G, A minor, F. And that's the entire progression all the way through the song. There is a link that I just posted right before we logged on here to the song sheet if you really need to look at it. But in a case like this where the song is so linear and it just repeats the whole time, it would almost be more useful if you just wrote on a scrap of paper C, G, A minor, F, and instead of worrying about looking at the chords and where you're at in the song, just think about where you're at in the progression and let me take care of the words as I sing through the song. Okay? So with that in mind, let's just jump in. We'll play through it a few times and then I'll start singing. And the progression is going to continue on just as it was. The only difference is I won't be able to call out the chords because I'll be busy singing. This is where it would be very nice to have an assistant where I could have somebody calling out the chords as I went. But this is a one-man operation, so that's just the way it goes. Right, starting on C, I'll count you in. Let's try this song. This is One Day by Matisiago. 1, 2, ready, C. Then G, A minor, and then F. C, G, A minor, F, C. Sometimes I lay under the moon and thank God I'm breathing. Then I pray, don't take me soon, 'cause 'cause I'm here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that they don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more war, and our children will play one day, one day, one day, one day, one day, one day. G, A minor, and F. If you get lost, it can be helpful to stop and just wait for the C to come around again, and you can start over. Here's the next verse. It's not about win or lose, 'cause we all lose when they feed on the souls of the innocent. Blood-drenched pavement, keep on moving though the waters stay raging. In this maze you might lose your way, your way. It might drive you crazy, but don't let it phase you, no way, no way. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that they don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more war, and our children will play one day, one day, one day, one day, one day, one day. One day this all will change, we'll treat people the same. Stop with the violence, stop with the hate. One day we'll all be free and proud to be under the same sun, singing songs of freedom like whoa, whoa, yo, yo, whoa, whoa, yo, yo. All my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that they don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more war, and our children will play one day, 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 one day. Last time. One day, one day, one day. And stop on C. Good job. I'm assuming you did a good job. But yeah, that's One Day by Matisyahu, one of my favorite songs. And there's lots more we can do with it. We'll take a look at those tomorrow. But for now, just getting the change from C to G, that's kind of like the big deal moment for this lesson. Is if you can practice getting from C to G and then out of the G to A minor, you're in great shape. So that's the thing to practice. If you can give it 10 minutes sometime in a couple hours or tomorrow morning or something, and just a little bit every day, and you'll become more and more comfortable with these different chord shapes. Again, this is a great chord to try that tapping method with, so that you hold down all your fingers on the chord and you tap just one finger at a time. You start with your first finger, tap it onto the fret where it's supposed to be, and then you hold it down again and tap with your middle finger, and then hold it down again and then tap with your third finger. This can help build your muscle memory for the chord, so that when your fingers need to go into that shape, they're kind of familiar with where their neighbors should be in this positioning, you know, and it becomes its own unit. Your hand starts working as, instead of thinking about one finger at a time, this is my G hand, right? So that everything works together and everything just happens. Boom, you just go right to the chord. So practice that, and we'll reconvene for our last kind of finishing up lesson on this subject of easy ukulele beginner songs, and we'll add some things to One Day tomorrow. Hope to see you all back there again. Otherwise, we're gonna transition into doing a little bit more advanced stuff, so we catch kind of both sides of the coin, the people who are just starting out and those who are more experienced and want to do some more picking or something along those lines. I had a great email last night from somebody who's been tuning in, Tamara. She wanted to learn about thirds. Actually, I'm sorry. The first question she had was using scales, and why do people tell you to learn scales? And I haven't really come up with an official answer in my mind, because this is the first I've thought of this again since last night. But people say, learn your scales. And I'm also one of those people. I say, learn your scales. That's one of the best things you can do. But from her email, it sounds like she's not exactly clear why, or how you apply that. And I'm sure this is true for a lot of people, because they don't end up learning their scales, probably because they don't have a reason to. Tamara. Okay. Tamara. I'm wrong. Thank you. So, why do you learn your scales? And this might be kind of a philosophical explanation, but to me, learning your scales is important because it's the core of the music. And if you want to go beyond strumming chords and anywhere into picking, or anywhere into playing by ear, or playing in an improvised way that is off of the sheet, that is to say, you're coming up with it as opposed, or listening for it, or interpreting it without looking at a page, a tab, or a chord chart, learning your scales is important because it helps give you a roadmap to where you can go, and it can help you get to the right notes faster than if you were guessing. And even when you play the wrong notes, you're still playing something that sounds consonant and nice inside of the key. If you're just guessing all the time, your ear will become very well trained. But if you don't know your scales, you have to look around a little bit longer than if you know, oh, I'm playing in the key of C and I know my C scale all across the fretboard. I know exactly all of the places I can go to for sure play a right note. That's sort of the main bit of learning your scales, is that it gives you a for sure place to go when you're learning to improvise. We just want to diddle and play something. And I've gotten to the point in my playing that I don't think about scales quite as much. I'm hearing things, and I'm hearing where I want to go next, and I know for the most part how far away the next note is, so I know what fret to go to, as opposed to thinking like, oh, I need to play this next note in the scale, or this next note in the scale. But when I was starting out, that scale gave me the framework to know that, well, if I'm in the key of C, I'm probably not going to go from C to the second fret on the E string. That's a very unlikely place to go unless I'm intentionally playing a wrong note. There's lots of wrong notes in Hawaiian music, but by having the framework, you kind of know when to apply them and when to not. So, but if I know my C scale, I know that a more likely option is going from C to the first fret on the second string and playing that F, which is inside the scale. So that's sort of why I would encourage people to learn scales. Definitely, if you're just starting out and you're just learning your chords and you want to continue strumming and you don't really feel like you you're not inclined to take the next step into picking or anything, you probably don't need to learn your scales. There's not really a reason for that. But if you do want to get into improvising and you want to get into picking and you want to get into playing without having to look at the paper and just kind of freestyle a little bit more and play by ear, by having the scales down, you'll have more safe places to go when you're picking and just creating melodies or creating little solo leads instead of just completely guessing all the time or needing to follow something that's written onto the pages. You'll have a framework to build from. Beyond that, when you get into learning scales, there are lots of options for creating melodic patterns that you might not otherwise ever get into your ear unless you're just listening to music. But as far as your own playing goes, if you don't know the scales, you don't have a way to build up. All of this assumes that you're not playing completely by ear, which is fine as well. But if you're uncomfortable playing by ear, a scale gives you a place to start from to learn patterns where you might play, say, 5 down and then work from the next note in the scale. So like if I was to play in the key of G, I would need to know my scale to do this. That kind of a thing where my ear wants to hear those things so that it can expand its horizons. But if you don't know your scales, you're never going to feel comfortable to play these notes unless you have already figured out by ear that those are the safe notes in this situation. In which case, you're still kind of learning your scales, but you're learning them completely by ear as opposed to working with them on the page, which is what most people do at this point in time. So that's sort of my disclaimer of why I would encourage learning scales. I'm sure there are other reasons that I will think about as I'm falling asleep tonight, but for right now, that's sort of the main one, is it just gives you freedom and gives you comfort in being able to jump in and play music. Because most people are not willing to just completely let go of the life raft and float on their own when it comes to music. So many people that I end up teaching are from a Western background, and they're used to being able to understand everything and to figure everything out like a math problem. And so by learning your scales, you're kind of giving yourself that parameter, those rules that, make it more comfortable than just, well, here you go, figure it out, which is great and valuable, but a lot of people aren't comfortable doing that. So if you're not comfortable doing that, then learning scales are a way to give yourself some guidelines and some bumpers. It's like the bumpers they put on the bowling alley when you go, so the ball always has to go down the middle. Same idea. As far as relating the scale to a song, I think the place to start and the place to go would be begin improvising. Really, is take what you know and take a scale that's in the key of a song that's easy, like Island Style, play in the key of C, and see if you can use the scale to come up with some sort of alternate melody that you could play as a solo on top of the chord progression, or use the scale to figure out what the melody actually is. For instance, if I'm playing the chords, on the island, we do it island style, those notes are all inside the C scale. So if I hunt around for them, I know where they are in this case, but if I hunt around for them, I'll have less places that I need to look than if I'm just guessing. So in this case, I know that the picking would be, right? That would be all notes that are inside the scale, but notes in the melody. And instead of hunting on every single fret all the way across the instrument to find the beginning of the melody, I only have 7 or 8 places to look because that's how many notes are in the scale. And it limits where I would start looking. So if it was me, that's where I would start figuring out melodies inside of songs where you know the key and you know the scale, or you're in the works of learning the scale. What is my absolute favorite song on the ukulele? That's a super, super hard question. I don't know. I've done an arrangement of a song called For My Father by Andy McKee that I play with a different tuning that I think is really super beautiful, but it's not my absolute favorite. It's a favorite of mine, but that's a very hard question to answer. Is there a website that tells you if the chords sound correctly? There is not, but there's sort of different workarounds where you could say post in like the ukulele subreddit. You could post a video of yourself playing it and strumming the chord and like, does this sound right? And more experienced musicians could chime in and say yes or no. But as far as like software to tell you whether a chord is sounding right, that's probably not so much. But trust your ears. If it sounds like it's wrong, it probably is wrong. You're more likely as a beginner to play. I don't know. I'm going to retract that last bit of the statement. Yeah, post a video and more experienced people can help you. That would be the best way. Can I use one day as an example? Going back to the scales. Yeah. So I don't know personally right at this moment in my life where the melody is for one day. So this is actually kind of maybe we'll learn together on the fly, or I can illustrate it on the fly. So if I know my chords are like this, I'm playing in the key of C, and my melody goes dun 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 dun. Just that first little bit. Dun 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 dun. That's all my melody is. But I was able to play those and know where they're at. A, because I've done a lot of playing of melodies along with songs, so that my ear kind of knows where in the range it's supposed to be. But if I'm using all notes from the C scale, because that's what the song is in. That kind of a thing where I'm just kind of musing out what I think the melody is and using my ears to tell me whether I'm right or wrong. But most of what I know that my options are limited because I know the scale. I'm not hunting for every single note. I'm not wondering if that note is going to be part of the melody because I know that that's not part of the scale. So by eliminating that, I know I'm going. If I need the next note above this, I know where that is. And just by playing a lot, you get to a point where you hear distances between notes and you know about how far from one note to the next. So if you know your scales, you don't have to guess whether or not the distance is a major or minor third, or you don't have to be quite as precise about it, I guess. Just by knowing the scales and knowing what notes usually work, you can just go there and not have to hunt around in the dark so much. Are there any good songs for beginners to know on the ukulele? That's a great question. Thank you for kind of giving me a chance to plug my latest project. I've spent the past handful of days collecting, I'm up to at least 100 songs on my easy ukulele songs page. And, I hate to tell anybody what is best because everyone's going to have different preferences, but it's got a ton of options for fairly easy songs. I'm going to post a link right there. That is what I've been working on. And there's lots of different options, and it shows what chords are used in the song. So if you only have a limited chord library that you know in your mind, you can kind of hunt by key and by chords that you know. But hopefully that gives you some ideas there. Where do you find scales? Virginia asks. Are they on your website? Yes. For anybody that's interested, I have a 130, 120 page collection of PDFs that are all the scale patterns across the fretboard for each different key and a bunch of different scale styles. Like for instance, there's major scales and minor scales and pentatonic scales, all the different scales. And that can be found. Here, I post up another link because that seems it's working. Here we go. See how well I actually know my site. That is where the scales are located. And there's a lot of diagrams on there that you can get individually, but they're not as well as updated. If you go at the very beginning of the page, there's the free PDF scales collection. You can get that. All I ask is for your email to sign up to my mailing list so that in the future, when I have different tips and different things going on, I can let you folks know. But then you'll also get a download link for, that huge PDF collection of scales. That's like, if you need more scales than that, you should be figuring them out on your own. But really all you're gonna need at this point is probably the major scales. There's most of the study work that people do is inside the major scales at this point for ukulele playing. Yeah, so how about I play something else? How about I play that song I was talking about if I can get my ukulele to tune correctly? So this is an alternate tuning. It's kind of like dadgad for guitar, which is something that a lot of folk players play, a lot of like Irish musicians, and Jimmy Page recorded Kashmir with this tuning, I believe. This is just the ukulele version where you drop the lower strings, but it gives you kind of interesting chord options and allows you to play stuff you otherwise wouldn't think about. So the tuning from top to bottom is G, C, D, G, G, C, D, G. Of course, after retuning your strings so significantly, they like to kind of move around for a while. But this is called For My Father. That's gonna bug me. It's called For My Father by Andy McKee. It's a beautiful guitar piece. It's actually one of those songs that I had the melody in my head for years and years and years, and I could never remember who it was by, and it kind of frustrated me. It's like, oh, that's such a great song, but I don't know who actually wrote it or where it's from, so I can't learn it. And then my brother and I actually went to go see Andy McKee play at our local theater a number of years ago, and he played the song. I was like, oh, that's the song, that's the song. So I went home and I dug out that CD and learned kind of an approximation of it. Yeah, next time we need to do some live streams, we'll learn how to play that one. So looks like the cues are slowing down. If anybody's got some last questions, throw them up there. Otherwise, head towards signing off, and can catch you all tomorrow. I think tomorrow we'll try and review everything we've gone over and add some final polishing touches to one day. And yeah, if you have any ideas for things that might kind of link into the songs we've been learning, any questions that you might have about the songs, or if you're having trouble with any certain bit of it, please shoot me an email. And yeah, we'll wrap things up tomorrow. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Please check out the website if you get a chance and you're bored. There's lots and lots of resources there that I've put up over the years. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, encourage your friends to not come to Hawaii. Right now we're asking for the officials to shut the state down so that we can kind of take care of our own people at the moment. So we can have a chance to shortly in the future be ready to bring tourists back into the islands. But right now it's not a good time. So yeah, take care of yourselves, enjoy the day, and yeah, keep on playing, and I'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same place. Aloha.